All right, let's get to it. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so I just hate I hate asking for things of people, and I wanted to have a webinar where I could share not just me talking about how change works and what I've seen for people in the school, although I love doing that. I will do that a little bit. I do it all the time. But I really wanted to have you all hear more from people who have been through it and have seen some things just through this little 6-week course and what it opens up for people. So I very kind of reluctantly put out a request for people that might want to share, and got so many amazing people who you're going to get to hear from. Just a few minutes each. I want to keep it very low pressure on them, but I just like I couldn't even look for the longest time. And then there's like, people are saying yes, they're happy to share. They want to talk about what they've seen, and it just makes me so happy, and just feel so grateful to get to run this school and share this understanding and see what happens for people. So that's what we'll do here today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story for those of you who don't know how I like my change story and how this helped me. And then I want to introduce some people who have been through it themselves, and to speak to what they've seen, not to speak so much to the little school of big change per se, although they might, and that's fine. But every one of these people you'll hear from, like they've had some insights. They see life in some ways very different than how they used to see it. And just by seeing life in a new way, so much kind of rearranges and changes sort of naturally for them. So I'm really, really grateful again to those of you who are going to speak, and yeah, just thank you for being here. And I'm excited for everyone to get to hear from them. And then at the end, we'll have time for questions, and I'm happy if people need to drop off, that's fine, but I'm happy to stay on as long as we need to. If any of you have questions about what we're sharing, how this understanding works, how the school works, or any of that stuff, we'll save time for it at the end. So I guess let me start by saying a little bit about my experience. Hang on one second. Let me make sure everyone's muted. Okay. So, and you may have heard some of this before, and I'll tell the short version. I won't tell the long version, but more recently, I was caught up in a binge eating bulimia habit for the better part of 8 years. I say more recently, it's been 10 or 11 or 12 years now. But before that, I had lots of anxiety, lots of just little stuff. I kind of felt like, my whole life I was sort of working on something. I was never quite there. There was always something to work on. And I was trained as a psychologist, so that was convenient. I had lots of tools to work on myself with, and then I learned coaching, and that was convenient too. And I could work on myself with all these tools and techniques and patches and Band-Aids that I had learned over the years. But what really kind of brought me to my knees was my binge eating bulimia issues. And they did last, they had moments when they were better, moments when they were worse, but it was the better part of 8 years. And in that time, again, I threw every Band-Aid I had, every patch I had on myself, and I tried everything and spent so much time and energy and money and everything you can imagine to make this problem go away. And every time I threw something at this problem to make it go away, and it helped a little bit, or I got hopeful about it initially, maybe it would help for a short period of time, but then my habit would come back. I didn't feel like I was fully free of it. Every time that happened, and that happened a lot in this time, I felt like, oh, there's one more thing, one more piece of proof or evidence that I'm a hopeless case. None of this is helping me long term as much as, in a deep way that it needed to. Even when it did help, it felt like it took a lot of my time and energy and effort to manage it, keep myself on track. I was always looking over my shoulder. So like nothing felt like freedom. It may have felt like moments of sobriety, if you want to call it that, or freedom from my behaviors, but it was not at all freedom. And I knew that the whole way through. And I kept just feeling like that's kind of, it's sad. It's not what I wanted. And it all looked like evidence again that something's really missing here in me. And at one point I came across the understanding that I share now. And some of the things I initially saw in this were I had been looking at my behaviors, looking at my problem, which is just how it looked to me, and trying to make it go away, and trying to find new things I could do instead, and trying to find new ways I could think about it. Now, even in that, it looked like a problem. This was an issue I had, but let me see if I could may have a new mindset around it. Maybe I can think about it this way. Maybe I can, feel that way about it. Every kind of mindset shift, everything you can imagine. But I was always coming at it as if it was this solid problem that meant something about me. And from that understanding, where this is a problem that shouldn't be happening, and it means something not good about me as a person, the pool of possible things I could bring to it was pretty small. Does that kind of make sense? So I brought that pool just from how it looked. Like, this is a problem. I need to fix it. What am I going to do? How am I going to get myself to not do it? Where's the willpower going to come from? What's the discipline? What's the new behavior? Maybe I'll avoid this thing. Maybe I'll start this new habit instead. It was all this ton of patching, trying to patch a hole. And none of it really helped. And what I saw flipped that completely on its head. And when I say it flipped it on its head, what I started to see was, whoa, maybe I'm actually okay. Maybe I'm actually not broken. I don't have this, maybe this behavior that's playing out isn't this problem I need to beat away. Maybe it's just something for me to look at. And maybe my thoughts and feelings and my experience that felt so uncomfortable that I would have to go binge to help myself not feel them, maybe they aren't as they appear. So it was this very strange thing. Instead of more effort, more willpower, more discipline, more hard work, I started to very gently, and not by strategy, but just by understanding, I started to kind of relax around things. And it very much just started with this, like, what if there's another way to see things? I didn't come up with that on my own. I came across, people who were sharing this understanding, and they put that to me. Like, hey, I think you have it wrong. Innocently, I think you're seeing life and yourself and all of this in a way that just isn't accurate. So little by little, I began to open up to the fact of, or the question as it was at the time, like, what if I'm actually well? And my experience that moves through me, yes, it feels painful. It feels powerful. It feels like it runs me around and bosses me around. But what if I could see that in a new way? What if I am not that experience? What if there's a whole space? And this is what I started to feel into, is this whole space where I could see feelings. I could feel feelings show up. Habitual, old, familiar thoughts show up, suggestions, you don't feel well, go do this, that'll make it all better, all of that. But it was almost like, rather than being run around by all that, I started to get a sense that there was life was much bigger, and I was much bigger than just my psychology. So my psychology was firing as it always had, but there was room from it, there was distance from it. And in that, there were new ideas and new perspectives and new possibilities that literally I was completely blind to. Like, they did not exist to me from my old understanding. So little by little, and also kind of in big chunks, as I started to to explore this. And again, I know it sounds very vague in the beginning, but some of the things to make it a little more concrete that I was sort of seeing and exploring is, one, when my brain gets all busy and I feel all anxious and tight, and it looks like the only way to make this feeling go away is to go eat something. What if I can be in that experience, and that experience is not me? It is not telling me anything I actually have to do. What if it's not even uncomfortable? That was huge. I mean, I just instantly would feel it and say, oh no, this is horrible. Can't feel that. Can't feel this. And some of my insights were around how much of life I was doing that. Can't feel this, can't feel that. And so there's so much work when we're afraid to feel a feeling. There is so much work happening, so much energy we're putting out, trying to hide from things and make things go a certain way so we don't have to feel a certain thing. And one of the really huge, just amazing things I started to see is, hey, I can just feel stuff. It doesn't mean what my mind's telling me it means. It doesn't, and it doesn't hurt me in the way my mind's telling me it hurts me. My mind's saying, oh no, you're getting uncomfortable, push that away. But I started to say, well, why? Maybe it's not so bad. And we start to feel a space and a bigger acceptance and a bigger understanding around feelings. And when you're not afraid to feel stuff, it doesn't make sense to have a habit. I mean, it never makes sense really on some level to have our habits, but there's no need for it. There, like, it wouldn't make sense to go eat a bunch of food right now, no matter how I feel. It wouldn't even compute. It wouldn't even show up in my head, because there's a new relationship with experience. And very importantly, there's a new sense of who I am that has nothing to do with experience or how this webinar goes or what I ate yesterday or any of that. A much, much, much bigger sense of who we all are as human beings. So in that sea change, in that completely new way of seeing life, all kinds of new things started to show up, and just new ways of being. And for me, my 8-year habit that I struggled with so much, it was gone really quickly, relatively quickly. I mean, we'll talk about that. And when the panelists come on, some of them have complete freedom from whatever brought them to this understanding, and others don't. And honestly, like, I don't think it matters that much. That's where we're so conditioned to look, is at an outcome. And me too. All I wanted was, like, I need to stop this behavior and then I'll be okay. But there's so much more to see. This is not outcome based, although we do get outcomes. A lot of things change, but it's seeing based. We have a sea change, and from that we see things differently. So just to give sort of an example of what that means, because I know all of this is a little vague until it isn't. Again, when you're not afraid of your experience in the same way, when you know that, I think what I started to see is, like, hey, I'm going to have ups and downs all day, every day. That's just human. And it's all but there's a home in there that's sort of gently pulling us back all the time, where none of this other stuff matters quite as much. It's not that it doesn't matter, but it's not solid. It's not meaningful. There is a home in there that we bounce back to all the time. And knowing that is everything. It's everything, because even when you feel horrible, you might feel horrible, but you're not fighting against your horrible in the same way. Does that make sense? Like, you're not scrambling to, like, try to fix it and make it change right now, and what's wrong and what can I figure out? Like, that just, why? Because how it looks when you back up a little bit and see more of this is, it's like, well, we're all fine. We're all healthy by nature. We all have everything we need. Everything's okay. All feelings are safe. And yeah, I like some better than others. And we'll feel some stuff we don't like. But even the stuff we feel that we don't like, it comes and it goes. There's no other option. It always comes and goes. And there's such a peace and a relaxation that happens in that. And we find ourselves kind of letting it come and go, again, rather than jumping in and doing a bunch of stuff to make it change really quick. So people always ask, and it's an excellent question, like, how does an understanding help change, make people change? Don't we need action? Don't we need to do things differently? Don't we need to use some willpower and discipline sometimes? And it's not that we don't do things differently. It's just that we're looking toward a different reality first. And when we have this different reality, you naturally do things differently. So this might not be the best example, but it's a really salient one for me because I have kids that are doing math that I can barely do. And my daughter in particular is kind of struggling with math. And unfortunately, I'm not the best person to help her, but my husband's much better. So he can help her with that. But like I'm seeing it all the time there, because when we get a feel for something, things just kind of click into place and a whole new reality opens up. So for us, like we could say, she's doing decimals. She's like dividing decimals right now, right? So for any of us, I could say zero point 0.7. And because we know a little about math and decimals and numbers and how it all works, we have this sort of intuitive sense of how much zero point 0.7 is. We could kind of, without even knowing, without doing the problem, we could make an educated guess of how many times 0.7 goes into 50, for example. Your brain just kind of rounds it and you just kind of make a guess because you have an intuitive sense of this, of how it works. Now, for her, until recently, she kind of didn't have the insight. It was a struggle. She didn't really have an intuitive sense of what 0.7 meant. How much is that? What is it? Like, what do you mean 0.7 and 50? I don't even know what 0.7 is. So it was hard. And she didn't see, it just didn't click. She didn't see a lot of things around that. Now she has more of this intuitive sense. So it's so great because we can say things like that and she might still get the problem wrong on the test. But it doesn't matter so much about what happens on the test. She has this bigger sense of how numbers work and what goes into what and how you would compare two numbers like that. And I was thinking about that in terms of this, because that's sort of what this is. We get this more like intuitive sense of like, wow, I see more about how I work. I'm okay. I'm this bigger awareness or this bigger consciousness, and experience moves through me. So I don't have to think about every thought and every feeling and know what's what and why am I thinking this and where did it come from. I don't need to do anything with all that because I have an intuitive sense that it comes and goes. It takes so much off of us, it just makes life so much easier. And we just feel more resilient and more able to handle what comes our way. Just like Willow on a test, if she has that intuitive sense, she still might not be able to solve the problem in the moment right there when it's in front of her, but she feels like, okay, I have a feel for this. I can go take a test and I'll probably make some mistakes, but I know the bigger picture of it. So when I talk about this, sort of what we look at not being so outcome based, that's sort of what I mean. We're not teaching to the test. So when people come in there, they are having panic attacks and they say, I just want to never have another panic attack again. I understand that. And me too. And I hear you. And that, like, let's look bigger than that. Let's not teach to the test and teach you how to do the steps to figure out this division problem. Let's look at what is panic. Who are you? What's going on when you're feeling that stuff? Totally different direction. Same with a habit. I just want to never, ever, ever binge again. Well, that'll likely happen, but I'm not worried about that right now. I want to help you see another reality. I want to help you see yourself and your feelings and your experience and why this habit shows up with fresh eyes in a brand new way. And when we see it that way, oh my gosh, the habit starts to change, but so does so much else in our lives. And that's the really exciting part. We kind of see, wow, I don't need to run from this habit or this anxiety or this issue. I can be with it. And in our ability to be with it, to feel free even with it there, that's where the real freedom comes from. And that's when stuff just starts changing so naturally and so all over the place, all over in life. So That's a little bit. And again, I understand. I I always appreciate when you're listening to this, especially if it's sort of new, that it is a little vague in the beginning. But again, it's sort of like if you don't know what point seven means, it is sort of doesn't make a lot of sense until it starts to sort of click and you get a bigger feel for it. So thank you for hanging out in this. And again, that's why I'm really excited for you to hear from some others in their words, which may also sound vague. They'll probably sound less vague than mine, but to kind of hear it, from other people and how this has sort of clicked and what it's meant for them. So, yeah, so let's turn to some panelists. And again, I'll just ask you a few questions and just to give a sense of what you've seen that's woken things up within you. And then we'll go to some questions in the end. So let's see. Let me go to Missy first. Missy, are you happy to share a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Can you hear me okay? Is the volume all right?
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Okay.
So so say a little bit about, and I know like I love your story. And by the way, Missy will be on my podcast in 2 weeks. We did a great long conversation about this together. So that'll be a good one to listen to. But yeah, just say a little bit about what was going on for you when you came into this a couple years ago.
So kind of like Amy, I think my whole life looking back, I had anxiety in some form or other, but it seemed to me that it served me well. So my anxiety came out in perfectionism, overachieving. I had to be the best at everything, the top of my class, I had to shine. So it looked to me like anxiety was not a problem. I definitely suffered from it, and I would have panic attacks in private, but no one else knew I suffered from anxiety pretty much my whole life. I was really, really good at hiding it. And I mean, to the point that I would have people say, "How are you always so calm, like in presentations at work or whatever?" And I would think, "Oh, this is awesome. I have like the whole world fooled." And people kept saying little things, like I would hear things, not to me, but to other people. When you hide who you really are, eventually it comes out. And that was the case for me. So I hid my anxiety for 47 years, and really just did everything I wanted to do in life in terms of, what people call success. And then at the end of 2017, sure enough, my anxiety found a way to come out that could not be hidden. And it was brilliant because I was very much under the delusion that my okayness depended on my appearance. And so my appearance was overnight, literally just destroyed. I woke up one morning literally covered from head to toe, from my scalp to the bottoms of my feet in welts, like big, giant welts. And I had never had anything, health related before. And my doctor, I didn't have a doctor. I found a doctor. They didn't know what was wrong with me. Long story short, it turned into chronic hives, which then morphed into face swelling. So my face would swell. I mean, I was like disfigured. So there was no more hiding. It was on display for the world to see. I quit my job. I became severely clinically depressed. My life became extremely small. I felt like my 3 kids deserved a better mom. My husband deserved a better wife. I felt like I was pathetic in every sense of the word. So I went from 47 years of feeling pretty much on top of the world to feeling like there wasn't really a reason for me to keep living. I didn't see.
Wow.
And yeah, I think I hit what people call rock bottom. And then I fell into this conversation. So do you want me to stop there?
Well, I don't know. I'm just remarking at like how gosh, of course, like I was saying, it looks like this thing is the problem and this thing just needs to end. I mean, here you are overnight, you're covered in, your worst nightmare, something you can never hide from anyone, right? And of course, that's going to look like, how do I make this go away? And so I can just imagine that drove a lot of what you did to try to help yourself. Like, let's just make this go away and get on with life.
Yeah, it looked to me like the problem was my health and hives and swelling. So I spent about a year doing everything in my power to get rid of hives and swelling, which actually made myself much sicker because I went to all kinds of wacky doctors and crazy things. I tried really crazy things to try to get rid of my hives and swelling for about a year. And then luckily I found Amy, and oh my gosh, like my
So what
life
did you
now.
see? Like how
Okay.
did it, I know it's hard to even answer that question, but like, how did your change start to happen?
This change started to happen when I realized that my desperate need to get rid of the hives was the thing driving the hives.
Mhm.
And I thought, okay, well, then that means I have to stop being desperate. And then that didn't work. And then I finally relaxed into what Amy was saying, which was, it's not about a to-do. It's not about going out and making changes. It's about just being still and listening and seeing a whole different side of life I honestly didn't know existed. There was a whole different part of living that I just was not privy to. And when little pieces would fall away, little beliefs I had held on that I didn't even know I had, started to fall away, I would feel really light and I would notice the hives would go away. And then before that, actually, I noticed one night I went out with some friends and had too many drinks. And I was really relaxed and I was covered in hives when we left. And by the time I had my second drink, I was very relaxed and the hives vanished in about a minute. And I was like, wait a second. And then like a few weeks later, my husband and I were celebrating an anniversary, and again, he poured alcohol, and I didn't drink very often, so it didn't take long for me to really feel tipsy. As soon as that second glass of wine went down, the hives vanished. Like the minute my body relaxed, the hives went. And I started seeing this has everything to do with what's going on in my thought life.
Yeah.
And then that paired with what Amy was sort of pointing me in this direction of, there's a different place to look. And then from there, I would get these little insights. And probably the biggest insight I had early on, which I've written about 1,000 times in the forum, is trust the crashes. Because I started noticing that trust the crashes, for those of you that missed it. I saw a couple of you look like, wait, what? And by that, I saw early on that every time I would have some sort of horrible experience, like horrible, like something with my hives or swelling would happen that would mortify me, within a day or two, it's like the world rewarded me with the most incredible insight. And then I would start to look forward to the crashes. Like, come on, I need another crash. I need something else horrible to happen, because within a day or two, it's like, oh, I see something new. And that kept happening. And just slowly, I kept getting these glimpses of this immense peace and expansion, until slowly on its own, that desperation for hives to go away kind of faded. Like, okay, they can stay, it's all right. And then it was weird because they went away. And I just kept seeing more and more. And I just kept staying in this conversation and really listening. And then 2019, like the first week of November 2019, I had this one like wicked flare out of nowhere. Like it just hit. It had been like probably 4, 5, 6 months maybe at that point since I'd had any kind of health stuff. And I had this flare that just was unbelievable. And I got up and I went to work and I had 3 presentations to give. And I mean, I had them on my eyelids and my chin. I mean, I was a mess. And I just was like, you know what? It's fine. And I stood under the fluorescent lights and we had like new clients coming in and I did it. And it was a Monday through Friday and had hives every single day. And that was the first week of November in 2019. And I have been completely healthy, perfect, beautiful skin, awesome ever since. I have started a new business. I jumped out of an airplane with the Army Golden Knights a couple months ago. My life is really big now, like big. I do stuff now I didn't even do in my like successful days. Like I want to like drink from the fire hydrant now. I feel like I missed 3 years. And so now I'm like, I just want to live. I just want to like do everything. And I don't worry about the hives and the swelling coming back. And when I say I don't worry, this is what that means. And this may or may make no sense. Nearly every single day of my life now, in this current amazing skin, perfect health, thoughts come up at least once a day. It's all going to come back. It's all going to come back and get you. You better watch out. But it doesn't matter. Like that's the freedom. My mind can say whatever it wants to say 100 times a day. It can scream, it can shout, it can send me warnings, it can tell me the worst case scenario. And the freedom is, that's fine. I'm not waiting for those thoughts to go away to start having an amazing life. Yeah. Those thoughts still come, I would say, every single day at some point. And they say, something terrible is going to happen. You're going to be humiliated. Your hives are going to come back. But that's just the record my mind likes to play. I don't know why. Go figure. It's the one it picked up. It's the one it spins every day. And it doesn't matter. My life is just, it's good now. Like, really good. So
I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much, Missy. I love, we could hear from you all day. I love it. But I'm so glad you said that because that's kind of what I'm pointing to, and that like we think we know. We think, oh, when I never think this thought again, or when I'm totally fearless, or when whatever, our mind will just make up when I never have another hive again, whatever it might be. But what we saw for you, what I got to witness for you over the last couple of years is like so much thinking, and it looked so real, and then your life just naturally got smaller as it does. When our thinking looks so real and we believe it all, our life gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we saw this little awakening happen where you started to question and say, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just my mind. And then you got insanely curious about what's there beyond all this talking. And then we saw you really fall into that. And then your life got big again, like you said. And so I just want to pull that out for everyone. Like and even that is just a generalization. That's my summary of it, but it's like we believe all of this and then we're fighting it because we believe it. But then when we don't believe it so much, it just changes. And even when it's there, we just don't care so much. So it's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Missy. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Jessie.
Hi, Amy. It's nice to be here.
I haven't seen you in so long.
It's been a while.
Yeah. So tell us, you went through the school a while ago, a few years, I think, like one of the earliest classes. So yeah, what was going on for you at that time?
Sure. So I had been exposed to the understanding that Amy teaches in the school, and I really had like, okay, this makes so much sense to me. Like Amy knows me, like I'm kind of like an analytical and like research type person. I was like, okay, this like makes so much sense. I got it. But I didn't get it. It like made so much sense intellectually, but I still wasn't feeling better like I thought that I would. So when this opportunity for the school came along, you know, I'd gone to a lot of talks. I'd even done some coaching, and I was like, you know, this is just an opportunity to go deeper. So I came to the school kind of with a general, and I didn't have like a thing to work on necessarily other than some like general anxiety. I really fought with my experience, particularly around my transition to motherhood. I have 2 young children and was like really not enjoying it. And I thought that I should be enjoying it. And also just like some relationship stuff with my partner. So I didn't have anything really specific. I just knew that there was something there to get, and I really knew that it would help me. I also came into the school really tied to my moods and my thoughts. And I can kind of be a roller coaster. Like I'm sure a lot of us can, but it's like if I was having a good day, oh my gosh, I'm a great mom. My life is great. Everything's easy. Everybody likes me. This is wonderful. And I would get into a low mood and think, life is terrible. I have to do something right now. This isn't right. I need a therapist. I need to go to the doctor, and I need couples therapy, and I need parenting classes. And like I need all these things to fix myself because something's wrong with me. And so I rode that roller coaster just all the time. And my biggest takeaways from this school, what I really loved was all the metaphors that I was like, oh my gosh, this like, all these metaphors and examples were so helpful to me, and learning why, like, there's nothing wrong with me. What I was doing was perfectly normal. Like, that's how our brains work. That's how moods work. Our brain is always trying to convince us that when we're in a great mood, we're doing a good job. And when we're in a low mood, we're terrible people. And I always thought that meant that there was something wrong with me. Like, why can't I just like write it out in the middle? Like, why can't I just be normal? I just always felt that there was something wrong with me. I really resonate with Missy's story that like on the outside, I think people think I have it all together, but on the inside, I, at the time, really didn't feel like I did. So what I learned from the school was like, I'm not broken. This is so normal. And after having a deeper understanding of what Amy teaches about, I don't need to fix myself anymore. I don't need a class. I don't need, like, some of those things can be really helpful. And it doesn't mean that I don't take advantage of the resources that are available to me, but it's not the same like Googling what's wrong with me, why am I anxious, depressed, all that kind of stuff. It just kind of stopped that seeking. And it's like, I'm okay. Another thing I wrote down, like just reflecting, it's like, I'm not afraid of my feelings anymore. Like Missy talked about this too. It's like, you know, if I'm in a low mood and feeling like a bad mom, it's okay. It's okay. It's gonna pass. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean I was like born wrong. It just doesn't mean anything. So my life is just a lot easier now. And I guess the last thing I'll say too is I've always lived my life like, I'll be happy when I get a boyfriend. I'll be happy when I get a fiance. I'll be happy when I finish school. I'll be happy when I get my dream job. I'll be happy when I have babies. And none of those things, I never felt good. Like I would get there and be like, after my wedding day, like my first fight with my husband, I was like, okay, well, that didn't fix my problem. Like getting married didn't fix anything. So now I don't wait for like the next thing. Like this is life. Like just doing what I do every day is like, that's what there is to life. I also I know this probably sounds so vague, but like looking back, it's like I always had my inner wisdom or my intuition or whatever you want to call it, like talking to me, but I would ignore it and be like, no, 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 that's not right. That's like coming from inside me. It can't be right. Everything outside is much better than what's inside. And so going through the school, I really learned like it's okay to trust your intuition. And actually, that's a better place to look than almost anywhere else. So I love the school. I actually went through, there was like an opportunity to go back through as an alumni. And even it's the exact same curriculum, I still got so much out of it. So thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much, Jesse. I love that. And I remember, us talking and like everything's good with you, but there was this, as it is for many of us, right? But like our mind just keeps thinking there's got to be more, there's got to be different when. And I love what you said about all that thinking of like, oh, I should be more in the middle. Like these ups and downs are for any of us, my feelings or my moods or my thoughts, they're too extreme. And, like I think that's so common, but for us to just kind of see, hey, it's just weather moving through the sky. Like it's just experience moving through us. There's such a softening that happens around it. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I can feel how much has been lifted from you just by having a bit of this understanding.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. All right, let's go to Melina. Is Melina here?
I am.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Hi. So you went through, I know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe.
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So what was going on for you that got you to try it out?
Well, it's kind of like almost a copy paste of what you went through, honestly. Like, I had struggled with food and bulimia since I was like 14. So at the time, it was like more than 20 years.
Yeah.
And it was on and off. Like I had I had long periods where everything seemed fine. I lived my life. And other times where it kind of got really heavy and really kind of just took complete, or felt like it took complete control of my life. I went into almost isolation, and just to be able to, manage these horrible urges that would amount in my head, and then it would pass and life would move on. And so that's kind of how it went for those, like 23 plus years. And I remember, like, I went through therapy. I tried all sorts of stuff. And I remember one of the therapists telling me, and this was when I was like 19, maybe. I remember they said, this is not really something you recover from, but you'll, maybe you're going to, you can learn to somehow live with it, but, don't expect to, to recover.
Yeah.
And I remember back then thinking, like, who are you to say that? And it just didn't feel right. Like I remember saying, but I wasn't born this way. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, he didn't mean any harm. It was just, his understanding. But looking back now and kind of have seen what I've seen, I see why it felt so wrong in me, because it's not our true nature, to having to deal with, with difficult feelings by eating massive amount of food and then going purging.
Yeah.
So so that was kind of my life for a long time. I still on the side, completed my master's, and I had several great jobs. I got married. I have 3 children. So kind of life moved on the side of all of this. But it wasn't until, I guess I tried different techniques, and it would work kind of on and off, and I thought I had found the thing, but it kind of was always kind of lingering. Like I knew, okay, if I'm gonna, if I'm gonna go through a troubled period of time, this is kind of my preferred coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And this was really just because I was afraid of feeling, that bad. And I'd always been told, I remember by my mom, well, you are a very sensitive person. you feel things very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that kind of made me a bit special that way, that was probably just me, at least to the extent. It felt kind of very, very personal.
Yeah.
And then I read the book first, Brain Over Binge, which I know was also, a turning point, I think, for you.
Yeah.
I kind of introduced this kind of new concept. There was like, that maybe it wasn't my fault. Maybe I wasn't broken. Maybe there was a neurological part of this, just, something I had kind of trained my brain to do, and maybe I could be untrained. And luckily there was this extra kind of part from you that talked to what was beyond that. And that's how I kind of found out about the school, and I enrolled. And I wasn't able at the time to be live on the calls because I lived in a very different time zone. But just going through the course material and watching the calls whenever I could, and you were very helpful when I would write you and you would address my questions, just kind of started lifting things. I didn't do anything differently, but very slowly I started to see things differently. And for me, it took a long time. Like I'll say it, or rather, I would see something, and then I would question it, because I just, I really struggled going beyond the intellect. But something in it just kind of kept me in the conversation, because I kind of felt like you had handed me a master key. I just didn't quite know how to work it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew it would kind of unlock everything, and it just slowly has, and it continues to. Like it feels like I have, this kind of huge puzzle of my life, or my experience, everyone's experience, and it's like it's a self-moving puzzle. It's kind of like it's just finding its own little place, kind of day by day, insight by insight.
Yeah. So does it feel like before, were you focused on your behavior more, or like how was that shift? Because I love what you're saying about, it didn't happen overnight. Like kind of being in this conversation was little by little of things falling away and chipping away. Yeah. So how was that compared to like how you would try it in the past to change your habit?
Yeah. It was, I would say it was two things. I think what I had been very focused on in the past was, for the first many years, it was very much about something must have happened. Like I must have some kind of traumatic experience I don't remember, which was very confusing to me, because I had a wonderful childhood. So it just didn't make sense to look there, but that was kind of the option I was presented. So there was kind of the whole emotional thing about trying to dig deep and write down everything and all of that. And then definitely also, as I maybe in my 20s, I started looking, maybe I need techniques. So I looked very much at the behavior and tried to kind of manage my surroundings. If only, if I can keep this predictable, or I have this certain routine, I can stay clear, I don't get urges, I'm fine.
Right.
But life happens, right? Like it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And the whole emotion, like the whole thing about going through my childhood and past experiences didn't exactly provide relief either. So yeah, that was where it really kind of changed, or what was different about you. And I think why I kept coming back, even when I sometimes shook my head, I was like, my God, it's not going fast enough. I wanted instant relief.
Yeah.
I kept coming back, and it just it's like a drizzle for me. At least I know for some people, it just kind of, it's like a flood coming through. For me, it was like a drizzle.
Yeah.
And, but the beautiful thing is it's still drizzling, and it's amazing.
Yeah. I love that. And that's so common that, again, like you said, for some people see huge things and big things shift all at once. For others, it's much slower. For others, it's a combination. But what I love about this so much is it never ends. It never ends. It's not, again, it's not like, oh, when my thing goes away, when my problem goes away, then I'm done. Like that's just really when it gets good. And so much else in life starts to open up as we just get curious about all this. So
well, that's exactly the thing. Thank you for mentioning that, because like I came to your school with that problem or issue or whatever you want to call it, and that has like dramatically changed. I just don't have that issue anymore, and and everything else has changed too.
yeah,
Like everything has changed, like because it's my experience, like it's my whole experience
yeah,
of life that's changed. So it's my relationship, it's everything, like it's everything, because you see everything differently.
yeah,
And by starting to understand what in the world is going on and not putting meaning to something that has no meaning,
yeah.
it really is life changing.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Let's go to Gina. Gina, can you unmute? Let me see.
Unmute. Hello?
There we go. Hi,
Okay,
Gina.
thank you. I was muted. I have been insecure and just thought I was not good enough my whole life. Then, I'm working, married, have a kid, and then life just changed about 8 years ago. My son went to college in LA. That's a plane ride away for me. And I was doing a lot of public speaking and creative stuff at work, and they did a reorganization. They put me in an office and wanted me to do a bunch of paperwork, which I was not really good at. And I was good at the public speaking and the creative stuff. And so I already have a belief that I'm not good enough, right? And so this being in a cubicle and doing paperwork, it is just confirming all of my thoughts my whole life that I was stupid and not good enough. And I'm starting to get little side conversations with managers who are trying to counsel me into doing better. And it is just, it's awful, because that means I'm bad. I can't do this job as well as my next door neighbor cubicle person, And so my son is gone, moved away, and I'm really bad at this job now. And so what do? I discovered Chardonnay, and Chardonnay started to just take the whole day away from me, because by the end of the day, I felt awful. And all day it was a struggle to just do it all correctly. And it was horrible. And no matter how hard I tried at this job, I would just always make mistakes or do something that it wasn't my skill set at all. And I just didn't realize that. So I'm drinking too much. I go and I out there. And if you do some research online about drinking, you will find out you have a big, huge problem. You can never drink again. You have to go meetings for the rest of your life. And I did that. I read all the books. I went to the meetings. I met people. And none of it spoke to me. And I thought, well, I guess I'm just one of those hopeless cases that, they talk about, because I was drinking nearly every night. And then I read Amy's book, and I thought, maybe I'm not a really bad, awful person. This book is really interesting, and it was also completely different than anything else I had read. And believe me, I'd read a lot of self-help books, got a lot of counseling, a lot of meetings, a lot of everything to fix myself, right? Because there's something wrong with me. And then Amy, I took her class, and she's got, first thing she said is, there's nothing wrong with you. You are really a good, joyful, beautiful human being. And there's all this weather happening. And for some reason, I believed that. I thought, well, when I really go inside and when I really think about myself, I think I am a good person. I just think I have all these things wrong with me. That's what I thought. Then Amy brought out these teeth, these little red teeth. And she said, this is your mind all the time talking to you. So it took me a while, but then towards the end, I started to really get it. And she said, don't force it, because, you know, I force everything. I have to fix. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to gently practice not believing my thoughts. So my chattering brain, those red teeth would go, it's time to drink Chardonnay. You want to go get some Chardonnay? And finally I was able to go, you know what? That's just my brain chattering at me, nothing more. And the thought would just sort of go away. And I started doing it again and again and again. And I only took this class within the last 12 months. So fast forward to today, do sometimes I drink too much? Yes. Is there something really badly wrong with me? No. It's my thoughts that I'm believing. And now I know that I am a really beautiful person who believes my thoughts. And that's it. And then to go beyond that, I'm now going to take some college courses. And I thought I was so insecure and messed up. I thought, well, I'd never be able to pass the class or go to college. That's for other people. I would never be. Of course I could do that. Why not? And if I can't figure something out, I'll just ask the questions.
No.
You know, and so now when I drink a little too much Chardonnay or whatever, it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It doesn't mean I'm bad. It means I believed my thoughts and I went a little overboard and I'm a human being, and you know, and then it goes away. And also I want to share that yesterday was like a yucky, icky day for me. I was in a bad mood and and I sort of like let myself give into it. But one thing I took away from the class is, you know what, this is going to pass, because my mind's always talking to me. And tomorrow I bet you my mind's going to tell me something different. And today's a good day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. It's really changed. I mean, I'm to the point, I'm so excited. I want to stand on the street corners saying, ask me about Little Book of Big Change. I mean, I'm crazy about this program. I want to spread this message to people, because it's totally, even though I've only taken the last year and I haven't had big change. I drink less. I'm going to enroll in some college classes. These aren't gigantic things, but my whole life has changed.
Yeah,
for the better.
You see things differently. That's what I love. Like, you can feel that. And this is exactly what I meant. Like, my daughter has a feel for math. She still got a C on the test. We don't care about the stupid test. I know now she has a feel for math, so it's going to keep getting better. Same thing with Gina, right? You drink a little bit too much. Things don't go perfect. You have a mood. So what? Like, you have a new view of reality. So things cannot not change, it's amazing.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's exactly right. I don't have to make everything a big monumental deal, because it's just my brain talking to me. Those red teeth, I want to get a set of those teeth.
They're on their way to you.
Yes, there they are. I just love those teeth. So,
awesome.
So even though I'm really a beginner, I really trust and feel that I'll progress and just have a deeper understanding as I go along.
Yeah,
so
you will. Thank you so much for
Amy.
sharing. Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Oh, okay. Let's go to Shelley.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Shelley. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your habit, or whatever was going on for you when you first sort of got curious about this.
Okay. So what was going on for me was I was very reactionary, and I would react very quickly, and I didn't know why. And it was about anything, really, anything. And it drove me crazy. Like, it made me so sad, just sad and unhappy, because when you react to things, you're not living a full life. You're living a very constricted life.
Mhm.
And I did everything to try to stop reacting. I would go to silent weekend meditation retreats. I took cold showers. I just started distilling all our water that we drank, because I had read that it would change your blend and help reaction. I read every book on neural connections in the brain to think that I could like rewire my brain. I did biofeedback, like everything for years and years and years. And nothing worked. Nothing. And then little school, a big change found me. I don't know how it found me, but thank God it did. And when I started the class, well, during the class, I should say, I started to understand that all my reacting was to protect and defend all my conditioned beliefs that aren't true. Like, that was crazy, right? And right when I started, this was the weirdest thing. So before this, I only read nonfiction books. They were all like your brain, like everything was about the brain.
Yeah.
And then when I really soon after I started your school, maybe like a week into it, I noticed this crazy shift, and I started reading all fiction books, and all like I never read like murder books, but they were all suspense books, and like something that was not my genre whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I really was enjoying it. And then once I just kept going in the school, and I got like a deeper understanding of, wow, all my conditioned beliefs are so what I was reacting to, and are so meaningless. And there was no blame to put on anybody. It just, none of them mattered. And when they started falling away, I realized that, and this was really funny, I stopped all the outside in stuff. Like, if I wanted, I love doing breathing exercises. Like, that's just my favorite thing. I do it because I want to do it. I don't do it because I want to change something. And so it really left a lot of hours in my day. I mean, I have to tell you, like, a ton. And now I take like hot showers, and I love them. Like, I was like making myself stay in a cold shower thinking that it would change my physiology or whatever. So it's life changing, like just absolutely life changing. And the beautiful thing about it is, even though I'm seeing things in such a different way, I have, because I always talk about this, and my daughter and my husband live in the house with me, they have picked up on things and changing, their thought process or how they see something. Yeah. So it's really been just amazing. So I highly, highly suggest it. And even if you don't have anything, like, all of us think our thinking is us. And, like, I don't think you have to have in my opinion, I don't think you have to have a habit. It's just knowing where your thinking is coming from.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so funny. It might sound strange to people that Shelley all of a sudden started reading fiction, and that's really, really common. Like, I never would have thought of that either, really, but I can't tell you how many people in every course are like, all of a sudden, I'm not reading self-help anymore. I'm reading novels, or mystery or whatever. And, and it's just because we're doing all that. We might say, oh, I just like these kinds of books, but we're doing it because we think there's something wrong. There's something that needs to be fixed. And as soon as we start to wake up to, like, wait a minute, maybe I'm actually okay. Maybe all of this isn't broken. like you said, it opens up so much time and energy and just makes our world bigger, and you get to take hot showers and do so many more things. So and the trickle down effects to your family, that's huge also.
It's
Yeah.
such a gift. And well, I just want to say one other thing. The funniest thing is it not only trickled down to my family, but then my husband has a business, and he was had a meeting, and he was teaching the young people about dealing with a difficult client, and because they're always speculating into the future, to do like a what if that doesn't happen, and bring them back to the now.
Yeah.
And his young people that work for him are like, oh my God, that really works.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Shelley. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Patricia.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. So, did you want me to just tell my story? Or?
Yeah, just say a little bit about what you were struggling with when you came in a couple years ago.
Sure. So, I probably had anxiety my whole life, and it manifested as like stomach pain, anger was a big one for me, always trying to fix myself. I chalked it up because I'm overweight. So I chalked it up to that. And I chalked it up to being out of control in my eating. So I thought if I can just control it with dieting, if I could just be perfect, if I can just fix everything, and I'd be better. I just really thought that would be the case. So, but in 2018, after a series, like I had a death in the family, I had adopted a child, all different things. And I had no control over any of that. Like I had no control over my child and how she was going to, behave or grow up. And I had no control over losing my family member. And I just felt like, wow, all this stuff I built up was like falling down and falling apart. So I was at like my breaking point really with anxiety, and I didn't want to live anymore. And I always say that this like breaks my heart, but I remember laying on my bed, and I remember calling my husband at work, and I'm like, please help me. And I was crying, and I was praying, and he couldn't come home. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What the heck am I going to do? And I knew I didn't want to die, but I also knew I didn't want to live like this anymore. So I had Googled, and somehow you came up. And I didn't have I didn't financially, like I was like, oh, like I'm going to have to take some money out of my savings account, and I'm not going to tell my husband. And I didn't tell him, and I took the course, and I started, and about 2 weeks in, he said to me, what are you doing? And he's like, 'cause you're different. And I told him, and yeah, so from there, so I have no idea what, like I say I have no idea what Amy was saying, but I have no idea what you were saying really, Amy, in the beginning.
I know.
Because I was so caught up. I was just so caught up, and I was so used to, reading the nonfiction books, and always trying to fix myself, and always trying to make changes, that I just really, it was very wooey to me. But I felt something, and it just kept me coming back and kept me coming back. And I think one time I was taking notes, and I had said to you, oh, I have something about notes. And you're like, no notes. You don't need to take notes. And I was just so used to being a chronic student too, like learning all I can. And I thought if I took notes, then it would just get in my head better. And once I like stopped doing that, I started getting insights after insights. And so for me, the funny things that fell away for me were like not only the anxiety, so I don't have panic attacks anymore. And if I do have anxiety, which I found out is normal, it's no big deal. It's really like, it's like, okay, yeah, you're just having a little anxiety. Like, what's going on right now? And I just check myself. But the things that fell away too were like the tolerance for gossip. I remember writing this to you, and we had talked about it. I was on your podcast, which was awesome, but we had talked about that too, like the tolerance for gossip. And right now, like even with this climate and stuff like that, I block people, I ignore people. Like it doesn't bother me, and people could say whatever they want, and I'm like, okay, that's great, whatever. So, but before I'd be like, do you believe this? It's no big deal. It's just really no big deal. Another thing I had too was I didn't realize I was so worried about throwing up all the time. Like if somebody would just say like, I'm sick, I would actually ask them how they're sick. Like, do they have a cold? Okay, no big deal. But did you vomit? Like, and I would think, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to be sick. So that was like a constant fear for me. And that just like fell away. Like one day I was just like, oh, okay. Like you don't think that anymore. So that was a big deal for me too. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
it just
so great.
yeah.
I love how you say about, that you're not sure. And I just think this is good for everyone to hear. Like, you didn't really know what I was saying. Melina said that, others have said that, right? Like, I didn't really know, because we're so used to, like you said, taking notes, being able to explain to someone or to ourselves even, here's what I'm learning, here's how it works. And we can't always do that with this, but that your husband asked you 2 weeks in, what are you doing? Because you're different. That's what matters. That we keep, like many of you have said, like, I didn't really know, but I kept coming back and listening more, and there is a bit of a paradigm shift in that for people, because we are used to what are the steps and all of this stuff. But yes, to see that this seeps in at a level beyond what we can even explain sometimes. And look what happens. Things like little phobias that you kind of were only partly aware of start to fall away, and so much changes.
Yeah, so amazing. And I'm still working on weight loss and stuff, but binge eating is totally gone. The emotional eating is gone. But those things have fallen away recently. Like it was not a quick it didn't happen all quick. Like some things did. But what I found too is the perfectionism, and no longer having to be perfect, and no longer having to present in a way that I wasn't. And trying to fix what wasn't ever broken. And I think that too, and not being afraid of having a feeling or a thought. That's so big. So yeah, my life is completely different. It's the same. I'm the same person, but like it's just so different. So I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love what you've seen. Okay. Philip. I love these stories. I mean, we could just hear these all day, and I hope everyone's hearing some kind of, I don't know, some commonalities. The details are different, but really it's like just something gets woken up and things just look different. And that's always going to be hard for our mind to wrap around. It's always going to be hard to articulate and explain. But look, like things that feel so heavy and real for so long just start to look different, and it's awesome. Okay, Philip.
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, actually. I've never been happier in my life, and very much at peace in my life. This all becomes this huge rabbit hole, right? So I can resonate with every single person who already spoke. Everything they've had, everything.
Yeah.
And the one thing that happened for me, it was no trickle for me. It was the flood. It was just like, everything just like was like this huge wake up moment for me of my thoughts. And that just that sentence, that we are not our thoughts, was life changing for me. Yeah. 200 days alcohol free tomorrow. I also gave up cigarettes, but it's so much more than just addiction. My relationship with my mother, I think you're aware of that, and just how human we are. And I think I told you about the experience about my puppy and my mom, and just like having a breakdown in the moment, but really wanting to feel it because it was important to feel it, but knowing also that all those thoughts that precipitate that feeling or emotion that you have are just thoughts, and they're not, you don't have to own them. You know what I mean? They're just something that keeps coming up constantly. And you have so many metaphors and analogies that, our thoughts, it's only when we grab onto the thought that makes it difficult. Letting go is easier than holding on to a thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when my big discovery, and it keeps growing, it keeps expanding, because when you open your Now, mind you, I was 40 years into a terrible alcohol problem. I died twice on the operating room table. I'd been through just enormous things. But all of it was to bring me to where I am today. And the insights, you know, life still goes on. I still have to deal with my mom every day and all that stuff. But the way of looking at it is, I noticed in the forum and during the school and everything, I read the book twice already, your wonderful book, and I'm doing Being Human now. But I found you in the alcohol experiment. You were in the first week with Annie Grace.
Mm-hmm.
And from the moment you spoke, it just right there, I was like, okay, this doctor resonates with me about something that I've been searching for my whole life. And it's peace and calmness. And that's where all the insight started coming up for me, is when I just relax, slow down, and let life happen. Just let it be.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll just share from my looking at you from the outside, you know, I mean, like Philip said, 40 years of drinking, and he's now been free for a while, and like so many big things like that. But I could feel the softening in you. I could feel you, just what you just said. I could feel like he got this dog and he just was so excited about his dog, and the dog just brings him so much joy. And then things with his mom, and like, oh, show us Charlie. Hey, Charlie.
He's gotten very big.
There was such a a childlike, you know, wonder coming up through you and through many people as we wake up to who we really are beyond all the thinking. So beautiful to see.
It's just being aware. That's all it is. Just being aware. And I think I noticed during the forum and stuff, a lot of people are looking for that one thing that they have to do to break this habit or break that habit, and I don't think this process is like that. It's like, okay, when you start to recognize that you're thinking, and I think I told you an analogy in the forum about, okay, all these thoughts we're having and they're ping-ponging off of each other, and you're like, oh my God. But in that, it's when you really kind of, eventually when you talk about the snow globe and all the flakes, eventually it all has to calm down. It's the way the body and the brain works.
Yeah.
And it's, if you could just pause, like for me, it was power in the pause. Just stop for a minute. Just stop. In all those sentences, and like I said, you so beautifully put it in so many of your writings, and I still catch you every Monday, hopefully, and every time you come on, I'm like, yay, it's going to be a great day, you know. But and I think that what people don't realize is that life still happens. Bad things are still going to happen, but it gives you a different view of why things happen, or in relating to a habit. How I correlate that, the whole story of how this came about was the triggers are just a thought. And I think that's what people were missing in the school and stuff. It's like, okay, how do I apply this thought? How do I apply this in everyday life? So when that thought arises, if you just wait, it's only going to last a few seconds and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's when we pick the rock up in the river and focus on it, is that it becomes a part of our experience then.
Yeah, I love that. We just start to feel everything flow more easily, and yes, it's.
I have never been more at peace in my life, and even on hard days, you know, I had to go, like my normal day this morning, go see my mom, give her food, and she can't remember anything, and this hurts and that hurts, and I'm like, it's, you know, it's okay, everything's okay.
Yeah. Oh.
And before, our relationship was so volatile, and because in cognitive decline, she doesn't realize her reality. It was me seeing her reality that made the change in our relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, you know, no matter what she's going through in her reality, I was letting it affect my reality, if that makes sense. Yeah. And when I tried to refocus, it's like when you say, you know, a way to get through a trigger or something, in my opinion, on how I took it, was just to do a little shift in your focus. Mm-hmm. And I think I told you when I was doing dishes that one time, and I'm crying about my mom, and I'm joyful and sorrowful at the same time that I'm losing a part of my mother.
Yeah.
But in that experience, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to wash the dishes, and the warmth of the water, and just refocused all that thought into what I was doing at the moment. And that's what has gotten me. But I have to tell you, I'm a baby at this. This is just the last fall class that I took.
Yeah.
But there are people in my immediate family who think I'm a know-it-all. I'm a baby. I humbly say all of this. But my mother sees it hugely because we spend so much time together. And she's like, what is going on? It's just like, you choose your happiness.
Yeah. Oh, so great. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing.
That's a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to get through some others. I love these stories so much. Denise, is Denise here? If you're here, Denise, raise your hand and I'll see you. If not, let me, while we're waiting, let's go on to Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Amy. Hi, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to have something to say. I took some notes, but I don't know if I'm going to need to look at them because I feel like I'm really full of stuff to say. Long story short, what prompted me to come into this school was eating problems. Starting out from as a teenager, I had, yo-yo, we call it yo-yo dieting. Now I know it's restriction and then binge, and then I did bulimia with exercise. And that was one of my big issues throughout my life. And I always, until, I've always taken it as my problem. It's been my problem because I would compare myself with others. And here I am, so many years later, 63 years old, and I'm still I have this problem. This is my problem.
Yeah.
And what a relief it is in the school now. I mean, COVID brought me to, having so much time alone and being able to just take a look at myself and listen to podcasts. I found your podcast through the Brain Over Binge, and you were interviewed there, and I was just like, I'm gonna binge on Amy now. I binged for I caught up because I wanted to catch up before I joined the school, because I was like, wow, this is really cool, this understanding. It was just, I just couldn't get enough. So then I started with the school in the fall, and just so much relief around knowing that the problem, it's not my problem. Like knowing that I'm like this person, my thoughts are not my thoughts.
Yeah.
I don't have to take responsibility for this horrible thing that I've had for so many years. I don't have to feel bad about it anymore. It's just what happened. Those thoughts just came, and then and now I'm like, okay, what a relief. I can just, and I was sharing this yesterday on the call, like, what if all those years of obsessive food problems, obsession, thinking, what am I going to eat? What am I not going to eat? How is this going to work out with being over there? Because I'm going to have to eat, and all this stuff, and then piling on top of that, the depression and the anxiety and the what's wrong with me thoughts, and now like knowing that it's not me. It's just, these are just thoughts. They are just a happening in my head. And then the what if question of what if these thoughts that I've hated so long and has turned into kind of self-loathing, like my cousin got over her eating disorder in her 20s, comparing myself to her, those kind of thoughts layered in on top of the food thoughts. Oh my God, no wonder I wanted to eat and just have fullness so where I didn't have to think all those thoughts. Yeah. So it just became this thing, I just want to get full. I don't want to have these thoughts. And then to see, well, what if the thoughts are actually helping me in some way? That was big. Just being able to take a load off with that one what if question. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't care. It's just being able to ask the question, what if? What if those thoughts actually helped me? Then that takes the layer off of, I'm such a bad person, I'm the only one with this problem, I'm this, person who's hopeless, who can never get over this thing. I'm going to be having it the rest of my life, and I don't have only have a little bit of life left to live. I mean, talk about depression. So yeah, I just lifted that whole thing to know that my thoughts are not my thoughts. It's not my habit. It's just something that's just what a mind does.
I love it. I love it. I love how you said, like, what if these are just happenings, like, coming through my mind, I mean, and you can feel like, yeah, just so much. I know everyone listening, you can feel like it's still there if it's there, but it just looks and feels so different.
Not this frightening, scary monster anymore. It's like, I still have the thoughts, and I'm like, oh, okay, hello. Sometimes they aggravate me, sometimes they don't. And then I don't feel like this definite, like, oh, I've got to act on this thought, because if I don't, then I'll keep having these thoughts. And now it's like more sort of like almost funny in a way. Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing. I love that.
Go on and on.
It goes from, I know, like, we all could. It goes from, like, yes, like the most horrible, heavy, personal thing to, it's almost funny in a way. Like, that's huge. That's huge. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Is Rachel here? Rachel, if you're here, raise your hand or you can unmute. Okay, I didn't know if I saw you. Okay, I think Sue is our last one then. So let's go to Sue. There's Sue.
Oops. Hi.
Hi, Sue. So yes, tell us a little bit about how things look different to you now compared to a few years ago, a couple years ago.
So I came into the school 2018 with a 20-year agoraphobia, to a degree where I wouldn't even leave my bedroom. It would, I would have panic attacks going into the kitchen. It'd take me an hour to get into the bathroom because I was so scared to get into the bathroom. And then I'd run back to the bedroom. And literally the bedroom became my safe zone. And being introduced to, obviously, what you teach, little by little, I expanded into other rooms, and my bedroom's still my favourite place in the whole world. But and I remember when I first came into the school, setting a goal, because I was very goal driven, and I set a goal to go to the local park. And every time I thought about it, I got frustrated. I was like, it's not working, it's not happening. And then all of a sudden, one day, I said to my daughter, come on, let's go for a drive. And we went to the local park. Did I feel comfortable? No. Did it bother me? No. Did it kill me? No. I'm still here. And then obviously the biggest one was my daughter's graduation, which was 2.5 hours away. That was the furthest I'd been in years and years and years. And I remember having a conversation with you, Amy, and saying, I don't know whether I could do it. And, and then it's kind of like, well, I could do it and feel uncomfortable. I cannot do it and feel uncomfortable. And I can regret it for the rest of my life. So I went, And yeah, sure, there were times where I felt uncomfortable, but 90% of that day was incredible. And I would not have changed that for anything. I now go to the shop on my own without a thought. I don't even think about it. I just, oh, I need something, go to the shop. I don't even think about it anymore. And the other thing massive thing that it's done for me, being a lady of a certain age, you get these, obviously go through the menopause. I've had pretty horrific menopausal symptoms, like permanently hot, fatigue like I've never known before. But I just haven't got caught up in them. It's just, yeah, okay, that's a feeling. So what? It'll go away.
Yeah.
And it does. Every single time it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just changed my life in the sense of being able to go out, doing what I've got to do, and that I'm not agoraphobic anymore. It's changed my life in other ways. And everything that comes up, it's not such a big deal. I had the middle part of last year, my kidneys wasn't functioning properly. And I was pretty poorly. But I could have really got caught up in the thought that, oh, I'm going to die, I'm this, I'm that. I just never. It didn't even occur to me to do that. Because that's how, I don't know how it works. For me, it worked very, very slowly. Little chips by chips by chips. Mm-hmm. And I don't notice it until I look back. Yeah. And it's when I look back on things that I notice, wow, I didn't, panic over that, or I didn't have anxiety over that. And,
yeah,
it is pretty cool.
That's amazing. I love that. That's such a good point, that often in it, we're just adjusting. We're just in the moment. You're just seeing life. And then you look back and say, wow, look at how much things have really changed. And I love in what you share too, how in watching you go through it, that it's just, the way I would say it anyway, is it's like your capacity to feel stuff just has grown. So yes, you went to your daughter's graduation. Did you feel a little anxious at times? Absolutely. But you could handle it. You knew you could handle it. So we're not talking about white knuckling. Sue wasn't like, I must make it to the park and I'm going to do it no matter what. It was just this softening where you could feel stuff. The feelings could show up and it wasn't going to hold you back. And it's amazing.
And it's almost like you want to test it.
Yeah.
I said to my daughter, come on, we'll go for a drive. So we got in the car and I felt a little uncomfortable. And then she's like, okay, where do you want to go? And I went, Coronation Gardens. And before I know it, I was out the car walking through the park.
Wow.
Yeah. And just the amount of times I beat myself up because I couldn't go to that park.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do this. I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
But I was so wrong. So wrong. And I think one of the biggest insights that I had was anxiety is a human condition. Saying you don't want anxiety is like saying you don't want to be human. That's just a massive thing that really, obviously, and learning how the system works, obviously, through being in the school. And, it's just crazy. And I'll tell you one thing that was amazing for me at the beginning, because what you'll find is that as you carry on going through the school, you don't have, in the beginning, yeah, you're like, oh, this is my problem. This is this, all over the forum. And I was like, oh, yeah, right, yeah, you know. But then after a couple of weeks, it's like the conversation completely changes.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what the problem is.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And you know, I still had this support, the amazing support of the community.
Yeah.
On my bad days. But all they did was remind me of how I work.
Yeah.
They didn't focus on the issue.
Yeah.
You know, they focused on how the system worked. They just reminded me. And for me, that was invaluable.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing too. I love how things have changed for you. Oh, that's such a big point, you know, that, and I love how Sue said that. So I want to, I know we're over 90 minutes. If you have to drop off, feel free. I'm going to take any questions if they're there, because I am going to share the recording. So I'm happy to hang on, and, you know, if you do have questions, feel free to drop off. But, I think it's such a big point, you know, to see that, the conversation does change, because we come in and we're so innocently, humanly focused on ourselves and our problem and what's wrong and how do I fix it. And what people start to see so quickly in this conversation is, no, we're looking at what we all have in common. How do we work? Like Sue said, what's the design here? What's the human design? How do we work? What's true of all people? And when we look there, we just see that all over the place. We see, wow, yeah, we all feel stuff. And then we bounce right back to home. We all have hard days. We all think we can't. Our minds all talk about us all the time. And then it ends. And then we bounce back home. And that's always happening. So it's like we have this new grounding that starts to happen, where we just have this kind of what we mean, where it's difficult to put into words, but it's like life just looks different, because rather than looking here all the time, we start looking over here. And that's all, and it's huge. You know, it's all we do, and it's huge. So we just are looking over here at what's right and how we all work and how resilient we are, not to deny or dismiss our experience, but our experience just starts to look like, oh, I can handle that. That comes and goes, you know? So it's just amazing. So if any of you have any questions, I'm going to say a little bit about the format of the school, again, just for a few minutes here. But please go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question about anything that any of our panelists shared, anything about anything I shared, and I'm happy to answer them. So, and thank you so much, panelists. Like, I'm just so grateful. I love hearing your stories and what's changed for you. And I really can't say enough, and I just really mean this, that all of this change comes from, it was already there. It comes from us getting a little bit more out of our way. And all that is our mind just relaxes. All the me, problem, read more self-help, don't read fiction, all that kind of stuff. It just relaxes and kind of falls away. And then all the health and the well-being and the habit freeness and the anxiety freeness that's already there within us just comes right through the surface. So that's all that's going on. So this conversation, the way I share it in the Little School of Big Change, is like, the way that works is it's a 6-week course where there is some content that you get each week. You get some lessons, and what that is me walking us through this understanding. Like, what if you are fully healthy and habit-free right this minute? What if you do work this way? And we explore that together through those lessons, through that video content. And then twice a week we meet. So there's a lot of interaction in this course. Everything's recorded, so you don't have to be there live for everything. But twice a week we meet for at least 90 minutes each time. And I'm just coaching people and supporting people and taking your questions. And I can't say enough that is where most of the change happens for everyone. And it's not even so much in you getting coaching and getting support, although you will always get it if you want it. Even in a group course with a lot of people, there's always time for you and your questions. So any question you have will get answered eventually. And if you want coaching, you'll get it. But it's not even so much about that piece of it as it is about seeing other people, watching other people wake up to, oh, it's just my thinking, or like, like the insights they have, we catch those, we see that happen. So there's video content, there's 2 live calls each week with lots of interaction. And then, as people have mentioned, we have a private forum where around the clock you can get coaching support, get your questions answered, anything at all. So for a group course, it's incredibly supportive and interactive. And then there are opportunities after the 6 weeks to be in our really great graduate community and to continue being part of that and getting support. And at some point, it's not support. Pretty early on, actually, it goes from being support to being just like, I just want to immerse in this. I want to stay in this conversation. I want to look at things from this angle with other people. So that's kind of what we transition to. So the next course begins on March 1st. And I lead this twice a year. There are opportunities to go through the content in between, but really the way to do it and get the most impact is to go through one of those 6-week courses. So the next one is March 1st. And yeah, it's just a great opportunity. I'll put links and stuff where you can see more about it. When you in pre-enroll, we call it, to save your seat, you save $47 on enrollment, and right away you get some resources. So if you're kind of, curious about this or struggling with something and March 1st feels like a long time away, as soon as you pre-enroll, you get opened up all kinds of resources, things to help you, books and webinars and courses and all kinds of stuff I've done. So right away, you get to kind of be getting ready for March 1st. So there's a question in the chat. Karen says, do you have to be clear on your issue before joining? You don't have to have an issue. Like really early on, what you see is what you think is your issue is not an issue, and it's definitely not yours. If it's there, it doesn't belong to you. So absolutely not. You don't have to have an issue. Most people think they do, and that's fine. There is never anything about, well, what's your habit? What's yours? Like Sue said, we don't really look there. We're looking there in the beginning. We tend to be focused on what's wrong, but so early on we see, oh, this is not the real place. This is not where the meat is. Where the meat is looking in a whole different, bigger direction. So it's a good question, though, in other ways too. Like, a good portion of people come in really struggling with something, and that's totally fine. A variety of habits, anxiety that shows up in different ways, everything you heard here, feeling too reactive, low self-esteem, depression, all of it. And that's totally fine. And then sometimes people just come in because they've heard about it. More and more that's happening, or people just know, wow, I know there's a lot on offer here. Life can be much easier and much richer than it is, and I want to see more. So there's always that mix. And often when people are struggling with something, it looks confusing to them that one course, one school can help with all these issues. But again, the reason that is because we're not talking about the problem, because the problem isn't as it appears. The problem's thought that looks real, always. Whatever you're going through, the problem, the suffering you feel is because you're innocently, as all humans do, taking your human experience as if it's the truth. And when we really start to see, wow, my mind just talks about stuff. Everybody else's does too. That's what the beauty of the group is. Everybody else's mind is talking about them and talking about their issues. It just looks and feels less real, and we're just less caught up in it, and things get really amazing from there. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll close it out, and I'm always open to questions. Please send them to me by email. I'll be doing some Q&As as we get closer to March 1st, where you can come ask any specific questions that come up. But I'm always available, and people send me questions, and I address them in all kinds of ways all the time on Facebook Lives or through email or through the Q&As and stuff. So just let me know what's on your mind. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, panelists. I love hearing how things have gone for you. And yeah, I hope to see you guys all again really soon. So thanks, everyone.